Good morning, students. Welcome to session number 2 of reported speech. In our previous session, we have seen how to convert direct sentences into indirect sentences. We have seen this with reference to statements or assertive sentences as well as questions. Today, let us see how this can be done with respect to requests and orders. See, requests and orders, those kind of sentences are called as imperative sentences. So, I have written a few examples on the board. Now, before we begin with that, let us see a few rules with respect to changing the sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. See, the first thing that we have to remember is that there should be backshifting of the tense, which means the tense has to be backshifted, it has to be made into its past tense. Then there are some changes related to the pronouns as well as the words related to time and place. Now, let us see the examples here. See, Rani said to him, "Please pass me the book." So the first thing that we have to remember is that it is a request. Which word tells that it is a request? The word please tells us that this is a request. Now the quotation marks have to be removed and a linker has to be added. In the case of sentences, we have added the linker that. In the case of questions, either we used WH question word or we used if or whether. And here, in the case of requests or commands or orders, we use the word to connect these two parts of the sentence. So here, Rani requested him, said to becomes requested. The word requested tells us that it is a request. So Rani requested him to pass her the book. So which is the linker? We use to connect these two. To pass, there is a change in the pronoun. Me becomes her because it is Rani, the speaker. So Rani requested him to pass her the book. Now, one important point that we have to notice here is that there is no change in the tense because we are using to infinitive. So there is no change in the tense with respect to requests or commands. Now see, for questions we used the word, the reporting verb, inquired, asked, etc. For statements we used told. Now in the case of request we can simply use requested. And we remove this please from here because this word tells that it's a request. Now see the second sentence, it's a command. The king said to the soldier, "Get out of the way." It's a command given by the king to the soldier. So instead of requested, we can use the word ordered or commanded. Now the king ordered the soldier. Said to becomes ordered. The soldier, see, linker to get out of the way. There is no change in the tense here too, and it's quite easy to transform imperative sentences. Now see the third example. The teacher said, "Please open the window." I have not mentioned to whom the teacher has spoken. The teacher said. So since the word teacher is there, we assume that the teacher must have requested a student. The word tells that it is a request and the teacher requested the student to open the window. And you can even use the word told here. There is nothing wrong if you use the word told because the teacher can request, at the same time the teacher can simply instruct also. So the teacher told the student to open the window, or the teacher requested the student to open the window. So this is how we transform imperative sentences. We can use words like reporting verbs like requested, ordered, commanded, instructed, etc., etc. So depending on the context, we can select the reporting verb. Now, I'll just read out a few more examples. The principal said to the student, "Wear your uniform." So naturally, when the principal speaks to a student, it must be an instruction. So the principal instructed the student to wear his uniform, and if it is to a girl child, to wear her uniform. I said, "Stay there, don't come here." Now see this. These two are imperative sentences, and again there are two. First one is stay there, second one is don't come here. So I said to her, or I told her to stay there, and I asked her not to come there. Don't come here becomes not to come here becomes there. Since there are two fragments there, we convert them to two sentences. See this sentence. The stranger said to her, "Can you do me a favor?" Can you do me a favor? It's a request. You are requesting a person to give you a favor. See, simply you can do like this. The stranger requested her for a favor. Or the stranger requested her to do him a favor. Both ways we can do. The stranger requested her for a favor, or the stranger requested her to do him a favor. Now, see this. From the tone of this, we understand that it's a request. But the form is that of a question. Can you do me a favor? It is a yes or no question. So we can also convert this sentence as if we are converting a yes or no question. This is how we do that. By treating it as a question, the stranger asked her if she could do him a favor. Here, can becomes could. Since we treat it as a yes or no question, we are using the linker if or whether. And can becomes could, and then there is the change in the pronoun. So the stranger asked her if she could do him a favor. Similarly, I said, "Will you help me?" I asked him if he would help me, or I requested him for a help. Both are right. So depending on the situations, we can slightly change these sentences. We can either treat it as a request or we can treat it as a question. Now let us see some examples with respect to exclamatory sentences. Veena said, "Wow, what a beautiful day." It's an exclamation. When you exclaim, it's usually to yourself. So here we have these words in quotation marks. Wow, that is a beautiful day. We need to remove those quotation marks. So we consider this as a sentence and we use the linker that. So this word tells us that it is an exclamation. So we don't use wow there, just as we have removed please in the case of imperative sentences. So we just replace it with the term exclaimed. Veena exclaimed that it was a beautiful day. See, when you say what a beautiful day, it's a phrase, it's a fragment. So we need to convert it into a sentence. So when you convert it into a sentence, we assume that this is in simple present tense and we need to convert it into simple past tense. So Veena exclaimed that it was a beautiful day. So these fragments are converted into sentences. Now see here, the child said, "Aha, it's so yummy." So the child might have tasted something and relishing that, it says, "It's so yummy." So how do we say that? The child exclaimed with happiness. Again, whenever we relish something, definitely it creates happiness in us. So the child exclaimed with happiness that it was so yummy. It is so yummy becomes it was so yummy, and we add the linker that. Now see here, Ravi said, "Alas, my dog is dead." Again, this is an expression of sorrow because the pet dog is dead. So here, Ravi exclaimed sorrowfully. So I introduced the word sorrowfully to bring in his grief there. So Ravi exclaimed sorrowfully that his dog was dead. My dog is dead becomes his dog was dead. So this is how we convert exclamatory sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. Now, sometimes we get yes as answers to a few questions. Sometimes we get no as answers to a few questions asked. Let us see that through this example. Arjun said to her, "Will you meet me tomorrow?" So Arjun has a question to her. The question is, "Will you meet me tomorrow?" So how do you convert this sentence? Arjun asked her, asked because it's a question. It's a yes or no question. So I have used if as the linker. Arjun asked her if she would meet him the next day. Will becomes would, and then there is the interchange of subject and verb because this is a question and we are converting into a statement. So Arjun asked her if she would meet him the next day. Tomorrow becomes the next day. Now here the answer is, she said, "Yes, I will." So the answer is in the affirmative. She gives a positive reply to him. So how do you do this? See here, it's an answer. She answers to Arjun's question, "Yes, I will." So here, she answered affirmatively. Since yes is there, you need not use this term. You can just convert this into a sentence like this. She answered affirmatively, or she answered in the affirmative, or she answered positively. Now see, suppose her answer is no, I may not. How do you do it? She answered negatively because her answer is no. She answered negatively and added that she might not meet him. I may not as a fragment. You need to add a few words later. So added that she might not meet him. So I stress on this aspect because you have these kind of yes or no answers in the dialogues, especially in the chapter A Sunny Morning. You have a lot of exercises or examples given in your paper, in your examination paper from that particular chapter. So as you deal with those kinds of sentences and as you convert these direct sentences into indirect sentences, you may come across statements like this. So now we have seen all the rules. We have seen all four kinds of sentences and we have tried to convert those sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. Now, in your second PUC syllabus, you have this topic, reported speech, for 5 marks. You will be given 5 sentences When I say sentences, it could be any kind of sentence. It could be an assertive sentence, it could be a question or a request, etc., etc. So 5 sentences would be given, and if you convert these 5 sentences into indirect sentences correctly, you will get 5 marks. So each sentence for the transformation, it carries 1 mark. So 5 into 1 is equal to 5 marks. Now let us see a few examples from the previous year's question papers. And again, remember, you can use told as a reporting verb. Along with that, if it is an answer to somebody's dialogue, you can also use the term answered. So depending on the situation, depending on the context, you can add certain words in between. So now let us see a few examples from the previous year's question papers. Report the following conversation. So there are 5 sentences. It's a conversation between Petra and Donna Laura from the chapter A Sunny Morning. Petra, the guard is waiting for me. It's a simple assertive sentence. So how do you transform this from direct to indirect? Petra told Donna Laura that the guard was waiting for her. Is waiting for me becomes was waiting for her. Now, Laura asked a question in return. Do you like to chat with your guard? So how do you convert this? Laura asked Petra if she liked to chat with her guard. So here, do like becomes liked. You are converting that into its past tense. Now, with your guard becomes with her guard. So, Donna Laura asked Petra if she liked to chat with her guard. If I have used or whether also you can use, because it is a yes or no question. And Petra replies, he is not mine. Petra replied that he was not hers. You can use answered or replied because it is a reply to Donna Laura's question. Donna Laura, wait a moment. So now Laura gives an instruction to Petra because Petra is her maid. So how do we convert this? Donna Laura told Petra to wait a moment, or Donna Laura instructed Petra to wait a moment. Now Petra asks a question to her. What does the Senora wish? Petra asked her mistress what she wished, or Petra asked Donna Laura what the Senora wished. Does wish is simple present tense, it becomes wished. And what does the Senora wish becomes what the Senora wished, because I said does wish should come at the end. The Senora should come at the beginning because we are converting a question into a statement. So this is how you need to do. You can write the entire conversation in a single paragraph because you are reporting it. Now let us see another example, again from the same chapter. It's a conversation between Don Gonzalo and Donna Laura. Report the following conversation. 5 into 1 equal to 5 marks. Question number 27 in your exam paper. Now Gonzalo, do you mind my reading aloud? So it's a question from Gonzalo to Laura. Do you mind my reading aloud? Yes or no question. So you have to use the linker if or whether. Don Gonzalo asked Donna Laura if she minded him reading aloud. Now Laura gives an answer. You can read as loud as you please. So how do we convert this? Donna Laura replied that, again we can use the word replied because it's a reply to his question. Donna Laura replied that he could read as loud as it pleased him. He could read as loud as he pleased. Now, Don Gonzalo, can you read without glasses? So, he asked another question. So, Gonzalo again asked Laura if she could read without glasses. Can you read becomes if she could read without glasses. And remove the question mark, no question mark is needed there. Laura says, I can. So, Donna Laura replied that she could read without glasses, or simply write Laura replied in the affirmative. When you say I can, it means yes. So, Donna Laura replied affirmatively. Or you can elaborate that sentence and say Donna Laura replied that she could read without glasses. Now, Gonzalo, I envy your wonderful eyesight. Don Gonzalo told Donna Laura that he envied her wonderful eyesight. Envy becomes envied, I becomes he, and you become her. So, he envied her wonderful eyesight. Now, let's see one more example. Again, this is from the same chapter, A Sunny Morning. See, you could get conversations, or you could get dialogue from any of the chapters, any of the prose lessons from your textbook, but most often it comes from the play A Sunny Morning. Donna Laura, do you use a shoe brush as a handkerchief? Again, a yes or no question here. Donna Laura asked Don Gonzalo if he used a shoe brush as a handkerchief. Do you use? It becomes if he used, or whether he used a shoe brush as a handkerchief. Gonzalo, what right have you to criticize my actions? So, Gonzalo's tone is angry. So, you can write Gonzalo asked Donna Laura what right she had to criticize his actions. What right she had to, see, have you becomes she had to criticize my actions. My actions become his actions. Laura, a neighbor's right. So, Donna Laura answered that she had a neighbor's right. A neighbor's right is a fragment. So, you are just elaborating it, converting into a statement, an assertive sentence. So, Donna Laura replied that she had a neighbor's right. Don Gonzalo, I don't care to listen to nonsense. So, Gonzalo told her that he didn't care to listen to nonsense. He did not care to listen to nonsense. Now, since it is a conversation between Gonzalo and Laura, every time you need not repeat their names, it's understood. When you use him, it is Gonzalo, and when you use her, it is Laura. So, first time when you introduce their names, you have to use their names, and later you can use pronouns. So, Donna Laura, you are very polite. So, Donna Laura remarked that he was very polite, or Donna Laura told him that he was very polite. You are becomes he was. So, this is how you are expected to convert sentences in direct speech into indirect speech. So, we have seen 3 examples from your previous year's question papers, and more we will do in our regular classes. So, please read and understand the text very well. You should know the text very well in order to convert them from direct speech into indirect speech. Say for example, when you are familiar with the text, you know what tone is used by Gonzalo while speaking. But if you don't understand the text, you may not be able to bring that in. So, please do see both the videos on reported speech, understand the concept, and do more exercises by converting sentences from direct speech into indirect speech. Thank you.